Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. It is 7 p.m. and I call the July 22nd, 2024 School Board meeting to order. The Board of Education and the School District of Holmen acknowledge that our schools are located on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk, Sauk and Fox, and Dakota peoples. We celebrate and honor these lands and their sacred significance to Indigenous peoples. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Board Clerk Maggie Smith, would you please call the roll?
Barb Wench.
Here.
Kevin Zilke.
Here.
Jennifer Deek.
Here.
Khadijah Islam.
Here.
Chris Lau.
Here.
Lindsay Need.
Here.
Maggie Smith here. Bridget Todd Robbins.
Here.
All right, with 7 of the 7 board members present, I declare a quorum. I note that the agenda has been posted, distributed, and sent to the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes to this agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Chris has moved.
Second.
Khadijah has second to approve the agenda as published. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion to approve the published agenda has passed. And there are no public participants registered this evening. So moving on to recognition and thank yous. Executive Director of Student Services, Jill Mason, will present tonight's recognition and thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. Well, we were just informed last week that our Project Search program that is located down at Gunderson was awarded an honor because the 22-23 cohort of interns achieved 70% or higher employability rate or employment rate. So that means out of that group, 70% or more of them are employed. So we're really, really excited. And then the National Project Search Conference was last week into this week, and Laura Anderson, the lead teacher, is there. We're fortunate that some of our other agencies help grant her fund money to go to this conference, and they also attend too. So Gunderson was there, DVR was there, and they were able to accept that award. So that was pretty exciting for all of them. So great award for us. And then Joy Crenshaw is our transition coordinator, so she deserves a shout out, Laura Anderson, and then Gunderson, DVR, and Aptiv.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, moving on to reports and discussion. Item 8.1, Director of Facility Services, Chad Brando, will present the Evergreen construction bids, which are part of the 2022 referendum work. Please note that all items presented this evening will appear on tonight's consent agenda.
Good evening. It's my privilege tonight to bring bid package number 8 to you all. Back to Evergreen where we started. Just a little reminder, we started with Evergreen because we had a small project to do the building envelope. That gave us some breathing room to get into I guess you can say, get into all those nuts and bolts when it came to the middle school and Viking Elementary for the bigger design work. So we did the building envelope, and now we're going full circle back to Evergreen, and we have their major big package now tonight. Like the rest, we have 13 base work scopes along with 1 tab and 2 alternate bids. The bid documents were released on 29 April, due on May 23rd, and reviewed May 29th, 2024. As far as the alternate bids go, based on the first bids, they were all vetted by Nexus, and we feel very comfortable that they'll get all the work done on time, and we feel very confident in that. As far as the alternate bids, we have 2. One was for the asphalt at the lower playground at Evergreen. If you were facing the front of Evergreen, it would be that small parking lot, or not parking lot, but that playground on the right-hand side. That was not in the original scope. We're doing so much site civil work, we're already gonna have a big team already there to do asphalt work. They're gonna be deployed with all the equipment. We thought we better take advantage of that and get that smaller playground done. The second one was for IT to be able to have new Cat 6 cable pulled and taken to all the drops. That's what they're doing at the middle school, and Viking puts everything together for them in one package. So that's why we chose that alternate. One of the glaring things, I need to just give a little more background. You can see that we came in $1,778,270 over our original budget. That is not a surprise to us. Back up again, so far we've had 8 packages to include this one. 4 came under budget at approximately $5.9 million, and 4 were over for a total of 1.8, which is pretty much this package right here. So we're not surprised by that number. When we had the overages, or when we were under budget, we were able to go back to the assessment on Evergreen, and we found it very prudent that we could really upgrade the boilers and the chiller and some of that piping and some electrical and some plumbing items that we all feel that you probably wouldn't like to see me 2 years from now asking for $400,000 for some boilers, just to put it to you very simply. So with that said, I would like you to take this for your approval for the Evergreen Elementary School renovations for $7,890,531. And of course, if there's any questions, I'd be glad
Any
to.
questions? All right, no questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, moving on to item 8.2. Director of Transportation Dan Garrett will present updates to the previously approved transportation float position.
Hello, and thank you. I was at the board talking about our float bus driver position, and after I did that, I met with Melissa in HR and realized that I needed to rework some wording, so I made a mistake on that. Some of the wording is it's not really just a bus driver float, it's an all transportation float because we want this position not only to drive bus, but van, and also EA for us. Some of the other suggestions she had, which were great, and I thank her a lot, is changing some of the wording to better. So now we know that it's for the school year, and that better to describe what the pay scale and everything will be like after we hit those 25 hours. So I'm asking for a consent tonight so we can get this posted as soon as possible. Is there any questions on the revision?
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8.3. Dan Garrett will continue with the fuel bid results.
So we're out for fuel bids. We did not get the same amount that we did 5 years ago, so this is a 5-year bid. And we had pretty much just 2 companies come back with us. We had Quick Trip, which we were expecting for our diesel and fuel bid. They came back at 0.06 over cost. It's the same thing that we have been paying, and that is a 1 year. So if a year from now, if something changes, we could always go back and redo that with them. The other company who came back was Midwest Fuels for our propane. And actually that bid went down like almost 5 cents. So we got a slightly better rate for this coming 5 years. And with them too, in 1 year, we can go and negotiate that if we see it necessary. All of this will be coming out of my fuel budget of $197,000. I'm asking that this is also consented tonight because I was late getting this turned in and the fuel budget actually started on the 1st. So I'm asking for consent so that we can get this approved. I already talked to the vendors and they're fine with that, but I'd like the board to approve that for tonight. Any questions?
Just out of curiosity, so this is like all the fuel the district plans to utilize in the next calendar year?
I wouldn't say all the fuel because some of our fuel is split with maintenance, but it's for the vast majority of the fuel. So that budget is for propane, diesel, and gas.
And then if there's a wild fluctuation in gas prices, they hold at their contracted rate?
The contracted rate is, or like for diesel and gas, it's their cost plus. So
Okay.
so it does fluctuate a little bit.
6%.
6
cents, yeah.
so 6 cents a gallon.
6 cents above cost.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any
Any
other?
other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, moving on to item 8.4. Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Julie Holmen, will present the 2023-24 fourth quarter budget revisions.
Everybody's so fast tonight. Wasn't quite ready. Good evening. So every year, between June and July, I come with a final budget revision for the year that just ended as of June 30th. And this year is the same as the past. What is unusual is it's been a very unpredictable year. A lot of changes, a lot of staffing changes, some vacancies unfilled, accounting software changes, and then all of the pandemic funding that is coming to an end. So this was prepared in advance of this meeting. We are currently doing a lot of things to prepare for audit, which starts on Monday. A lot of entries that will finalize numbers. Just giving you that warning, we're not there yet, and numbers do change. Once we are fully reconciled, all claims are submitted for our federal and state awards. And just the coding of all the summer payables, so processing through all of that in our new software. Kudos to the team upstairs in the business office for working through some very, very different processes in how we do things within the new software compared to prior years. And so they've been working hard to get all of the payroll payables posted back to June 30th. So anyone who had either hours in June for hourly staff that the pay schedule called for it in July, and then any of our 26 pay educators, which we have over 70% that elect that option to get paid through August. All of that is processed in the summer and posted back to June 30th. So still working through a lot of things there. The budget revisions do reflect the projections for June 30th of 2024. So this is the 23-24 fourth quarter revisions. The revised revenue for the general fund is estimated at 57 million. I can scroll down in here. You also have that in your packet, but $57,078,000. This is nearly $1 million more than projected last fall. If you recall, we talked in the past primarily about interest earnings and how that was projected conservatively. As you know, the Feds have not really reduced rates. Matter of fact, they're still pretty high, and interest earnings is high. So we estimate that our interest earnings in the general fund revenue to be almost $900,000 this year, the year that just finished. I point that out because if you look on line 14, back in just 2 years ago, we had 42,000. And now we're pushing 900,000 in revenue. Is that sustainable? No. When rates go down and fund balance declines, cash reserves will go down, and that's not sustainable. But that was not predicted a year ago in regards to how much we would earn on that revenue. The general fund expenditure budget estimated at about $57.6 million. That is on line 81 in the final column. So you're familiar with the DPI budget summary format. It is 2 years of audited, the original budget, and then the final quarter four as of June 30. That is a slight decrease over last October, primarily because of Prairie View HVAC project that is carrying into the 24-25 school year or fiscal year, and that's over 200,000, and then other adjustments along the way. The revised fund balance deficit is just under 600,000. We had a lot of things like unfilled vacancies throughout the year, or things like reduction in extra and overtime in an effort to continue to try to preserve some fund balance. And so we have to wait for the final audit numbers as we get closer here to see if that deficit does occur with the additional revenue and offsetting of the ESSER funds originally planned for HVAC projects at Viking and Elementary. then shifted that project to the referendum, we were preserving more fund balance. We've talked about that in the past as well, that effort to recode existing expenses for 1 year, spending out ESSER dollars and preserving fund balance. The estimated fund balance, I'm going to go back to the top, talking general fund again. Line 7, all the way to the right, estimated at about 6.8 million. This is 29% of general fund expenditures. I won't be surprised if it's a little higher than that. A couple of years ago, we were pushing up 35%. So it is still trending downward a little bit, but additional interest earnings and some of that offset with the ESSER money is helping us preserve that, which is a good thing. The fund balance does include about 1.4 million in restricted and committed reserves for retiree severance commitments and sinking funds. The fund balance includes about 8.6 million in assigned funds. That's for payroll obligations through September prior to any aid receipts from the state. And then the remaining estimated unassigned general fund balance is 6.8 million. Those numbers were shared with you in June for the fund balance designation. And as we reconcile all the end-of-year bank statements and distribute those dollars accordingly, I imagine they will be somewhat similar to what was approved for that fund balance designation. So the estimated revenue again is $57 million in the general fund, line 57, and the estimated expenditures at 57.6 million, with that fund balance being 16.8 to $17 million, potentially a little higher, around 30%. Any questions in the general fund, fourth quarter revisions?
Actually, I have one. The state, I see this, the categorical state aid had an increase to it. What was that specifically?
The revenue? It must have been the
yep.
revenue?
Yep.
One moment.
Yep, right there. 39.
I think it's
no, not that one.
31.
31.
I think it's 31. So we had,
Targeted towards.
yeah, we had additional grant revenue from the state that we didn't have solidified for the allocation. This one specifically might be, I know we got 125 in mental health aid. That was new after last year's legislative session. Instead of being applied for grant that would be prorated every year, they added it as an aid. So I know 125 off the top of my head is mental health aid from the state.
Thank you.
We also had additional federal award as part of that ESSER pot of money. They added $75,000 after the budget was all approved, much more recently, actually this spring. And so that is also reflected in here as a revenue, and it offset an expense that we already had in the budget. So that helps with that fund balance preservation. As I stated when I presented the March third quarter revision, the Special Project Fund 21, which is our gift grant fundraising and scholarship account, has not been updated. Once I do all the reconciliations and put in their starting fund balance, they get to carry over all their dollars. There's over 150 accounts, reconcile their revenue and expense, and rebuild their budget about this time of year so that they have those dollars going forward. We were still paying expenses out of some of those accounts, just actually today's board batch of checks. So we try to make sure all the expenses are paid and then go in and do the reconciliations so that everyone's starting balances are accurate. So Fund 21 has not been updated since the original budget. It is trending pretty similar. I do estimate, just by looking at things and monitoring, that there will still be over 1 million in fund balance distributed among those 150 plus accounts. The Special Education Fund, we project the expenditures and revenue to be just over 11 million. which is 300 and some thousand above the original budget from last fall. We have had quite a few additional tuition expenses out of district for some students. And so we are currently working with administration, Jill Mason and Nick Weber, Chad Brando, he stepped out, to bring some of the programs that we have to place students in off-district to bring them back onto our campus and help provide those services and reduce some of those tuition costs while providing them in-house. So it does take some training and some minor construction of classroom to accommodate, but overall, we're hoping that that'll help reduce some of those costs for those tuition-placed those students that have needs that we weren't able to accommodate in-house, bring them back. So that's good for them and good for the district, and working on that. So you will learn more about that as we present more on the 24-25 budget and expenses. But for 23-24, we do estimate that the Special Education Fund 27, about $11 million revenue and expense. That increase from the original also then increases the interfund transfer. Remember, this cannot go into a deficit, so if it goes over budget, the interfund transfer from the general fund also is higher than originally anticipated. Next up is the debt service fund, Fund 39. The only change here, you'll see again in the final column, is revenue, and that is reflecting additional interest earnings also for this year. So line 168, an increase to revenue based on the debt 39 bank account balance and interest earnings throughout the year. Within the Capital Projects Fund, this is Fund 42 Construction, Fund 46 Long-Term Capital Improvement Trust Fund. The change here is reflecting the expenses, invoices from Nexus and other vendors through June 30th. Again, today's board bills actually has a significant expense for June. And so this is reflected to update the best estimate of how much was going to be spent last year, and then we look at the balance going forward with the draw schedule for the next year and a half to complete all those projects. So the construction is a little bit unpredictable exactly when it's going to fall within our budget. So I do hear, though, things are on time and materials and supplies were coming in kind of earlier than planned. So I did receive a new draw schedule last week, so we can try to predict that a little bit closer for 24-25. The Food Service Fund, Fund 50, has not been changed since the original budget, so it remains at 3.7 million of revenue and slightly more expenditures with a little bit of drawdown in fund balance there. They did have record numbers, so I would not be surprised if they actually don't go down in fund balance, but the budget itself has not been updated. And then the same for Community Service Fund, same as the original budget that was adopted. Most recent invoices, this is our relationship with the Boys and Girls Club for the Sail to Success program, and they were trending just under 100,000, so this fund may have a little bit more fund balance than presented right here. In your board packet, you did receive a copy of this summary and also a copy of the notice of change. Just wanted to remind you, the notice of change is only since the last revision, which was March 31st, Q3. So if you're going to try to compare the change to original and revised fourth quarter, they're not the same document. The notice of change is the requirement for the publication in the La Crosse Tribune. So let me know if you have any questions on that. Any questions?
All right, any questions? No questions.
Right.
All right, and then Julie Holman will continue with the 2025-26 budget development process.
This is an annual process for the, that should say 25, 26 at the top. Sorry about that. So it's actually for the following year because we're very well into the 24-25 development of budgets. So I can update this and repost it to the board materials, but the header should say 25-26. So this is all the activities, major things that we do to major events that and includes the department responsibilities. It's very similar to prior year. It just identifies new dates where needed, but just the major events, the higher level events of what's happening behind the scenes to help get us ready for the 25-26 budget preliminary proposed and adoption next year at this time. So any questions on the calendar of sorts, the development process?
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background materials on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. Would any board member like to pull an item out of the consent agenda to be discussed and or voted on separately? I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided.
So moved.
Motion by Maggie,
Second.
second by Khadijah. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, moving on to the board debrief. I will call upon board members and ask you to present any comments or committee reports you have. Tonight, we start with Barb.
Not much. It's just exciting to see all of the construction updates as they're posted. And I just wanted to comment that I had a friend that they used to live in town and now they moved out of state. And they were visiting last weekend and they couldn't believe all of the work that's being done. And they're actually jealous that they don't live here anymore. But just thank you to Chad for your continued dedication, for everything that goes into this. So that's all I have tonight.
All right, thank you. And Kevin.
Nothing much. Just for students to be aware that we have like one more month of summer left and to check your schedules as we have updates on our lunches for semester 1.
Okay, thank you. Khadijah.
I have nothing. Just hope everyone's continuing to enjoy their summer.
And Chris.
I would just say congratulations to Project Search. That's a great program. I see those students at work most days in there, so it's just a big shout out to them.
Lindsay.
Nothing for me this evening, thanks.
Maggie.
I will echo the kudos to Project Search and about all the construction. I feel like there's a lot going on and the communication about what's happening has been really great.
Okay, Bridget.
I don't have anything tonight, thanks.
Okay, and I also want to say congrats to Project Search on their award. I think that's a really special thing. Moving on to the upcoming board meeting schedule. So on August 12th, there is actually a board workshop at 5 p.m., followed by the board meeting then at 7 p.m. August 19th, which really isn't that far away, is the back-to-school kickoff. And then August 26th is our first day of school, and that evening we have a board meeting at 7 p.m. So is there any other business that needs to come before to the board at this time? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Chris has moved.
Second.
Maggie has second to adjourn the meeting at 7:28 p.m. Motion carried. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.